Neuromuscular responses and the neuromuscular system. The neuromuscular system consists of control of movement, motor unit recruitment, proprioceptors, investigation data analysis, and sport application analysis. Firstly, control of movement. Firstly, in the Wingate test, the signal to begin would be the first command of the word go. When this is heard, an impulse will be sent to the brain and then along an axon. This impulse will then travel along the axon for a process known as saltatory conduction. This is where the impulse travels by jumping over the myelinated sheath, as you can see here in the image above. The impulse does this so it can travel along the axon quicker and more efficiently. This is by jumping over the myelinated sheath, which is there to insulate the axon, however does slow down how quickly an impulse can travel along an axon. This happens so that the axon does not depolarize. After this, the nerve impulse is then sent to the presynaptic membrane, where ACH is released over the synapse into the postsynaptic membrane and then into smaller receptor sites. This is where the impulse is sent through to the T-tubule, to the muscles and neuromuscular junctions. This is how the impulse travels from the word go through the central nervous system and the nerves to make the muscles begin to contract. This is the same at the start of the multi-stage fitness test. However, this will start instead of from a command word from an initial beep. Motor unit recruitment. There are three types of muscle fibers in our bodies. These consist of slow oxidative, fast oxidative glycolytic, and fast glycolytic fibers. All three of these particular fibers perform a different function. For example, if you were an endurance athlete, you would require more slow oxidative fibers, as opposed to a sprinter who would instead require more fast glycolytic. A motor unit is made up of a motor neuron and skeletal muscle fibers interrelated by the motor neuron axonal terminals. Each motor unit can be composed of different amounts of muscle fibers in each one. In both tests, different types of fibers and amounts of motor units are used, due to the different demands both tests require. For example, the Wingate test would require fast glycolytic fibers, as it is a short, intense activity. These forces will be generated by the brain deciding how many of these fibers are recruited in order for the body to work. For example, when performing the Wingate test, the brain knows a large amount of these fibers will be used. Many will be recruited as a method to generate this power. The brain would know to recruit fast glycolytic fibers from the legs and thighs in order to generate the power it knows it needs for the Wingate test. On the other hand, the multi-stage fitness test would require contrasting muscle fibers. For example, at the beginning, these slow muscle fibers would be recruited by the brain, followed by fast oxidative glycolytic as the intensity increases. Once again, in order to generate this power, the brain has to decide how many fibers to recruit in order to generate the right amount of force for the activity to be carried out. Proprioceptors. Muscle spindles are proprioceptors that consist of interfusal muscle fibers enclosed in a sheath spindle. They run parallel to the extrafusal muscle fibers and act as receptors that provide information on muscle length and rate of change in muscle length. These spindles are stretched when the muscle lengthens/contracts. An example of this muscle spindle stretch receptor is in the knee jerk reflex. This is where the knee contracts and the impulse is sent to the spine and then back to the knee, causing a jerk reflex. This happens because the tendon that runs over the knee is a muscle spindle proprioceptor, which means when hit, this information will travel to the spine and then straight back, causing a reflex, as well as also sending another impulse to the brain, however a slower one, to let this know that this is happening. Another type of proprioceptor is the Golgi tendon organ. This is a protective organ that can influence contraction. This is because this tendon is a type of proprioceptor and is also known as a sensory organ, which means that this certain tendon gives feedback on movement. This is protective, as when lifting weights that are too heavy, this will cause the muscle to relax so that the muscle is not damaged by the weight that is too heavy. Also, whilst causing relaxation of the agonist muscle to protect it, this also causes a contraction in the antagonist in order for the weight/load to be successfully lowered while preventing injury. If the load is too much for the muscle, this will send feedback to the spine and then back to the muscle to stop the contraction and stop it damaging. For example, when performing a bicep curl with a weight too heavy, this would stop the contraction and lower the weight at a rate which means that the muscle will not be damaged, but also the bicep curl will not be fully carried out. Investigation data analysis. On the graphs above, we can see the Wingate tests here, and here. The neuromuscular system links into these, as you can see where the word go command begins, which is here at the start, and where the muscles begin to contract due to this process through saltatory conduction onwards and into the neuromuscular junctions. And then the muscles will no longer continue to contract as heavily as things such as lactic acid build up and energy systems change, as you can see here. In terms of sport application for the neuromuscular system, this is used in all sports, as this is what tells the muscles to contract throughout all sporting activities. For example, during a football game, the neuromuscular system would be required throughout, as this helps to decide what fibres are needed at different times, which is needed in football, as this sport requires working at many different intensities in different phases of play. For example, when counter-attacking, you will be working at a high intensity, meaning the brain will know to recruit a large amount of fast fibres in order to allow the body to work at this intensity. In addition to this, there are also other stages where both the other fibres would be required instead. As well as this, the control of movement would also be needed in football, as this is what helps our bodies to move and contract as we want. As well as this also helps our bodies to respond to commands, which is needed in football. If you heard someone shout pass, this impulse would be sent through your body, just like the word go at the beginning of both of these tests, and therefore helping you to perform your best in sport.